Malden, and I've been a citizen here for 18 years this year. I am a pastor of the Valley Road Baptist Church in Pelzer. I'm also a certified nonviolence 365 trainer. Can I take this off? Okay, thank you. Okay. Um, I'm certified nonviolence 365 trainer with the King Center for Nonviolent Social Change in Atlanta. Since 2007, I've been working alongside police departments across the upstate for the purpose of cultivating a culture of mutual respect between law enforcement and community. I said all of that to say, in my 13 years of doing this type of work, there's some things that we began to look for in police leadership. One of them is absolute transparency and accountability with the community. Um, I've been a part of helping to develop a couple community advisory boards, citizens advisory teams. One in the city of Fountain Inn, one for the Sheriff's Department here in Greenville. We've addressed 13 law enforcement agencies across the upstate in one form or another. What work we have been trying to do is find ways of increasing communication and, again, transparency and accountability between law enforcement and community. So I would encourage the consideration of a citizens advisory team, which could allow transparency as well as just communication, and especially in the tone of the climate that we see here in this nation right now. We need to have access and an accessible chief, one who has demonstrated proven experience in communicating with community and talking with people that may be opposite of his political influences or whatever you want to call it. We just want to assure a commitment to diversity and a commitment to community policing as an approach, where you have police officers that are possibly assigned to certain areas where they get an opportunity to know the people and have communication with the people so that their interactions with that community would be somewhat different if they did not know the people and did not know the area. So those are a few considerations that I would like to throw out, and I'd be glad to be a part of helping in this process in whatever way I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Travis Reeder.
My name is Travis Rader. I've been living in Malden for the past 6 years. I grew up in Greenville County in an area that we'll just say was not pleasant all the time. And one of the things that did work in my neighborhood is having law enforcement that knew the neighborhood, that knew the people in the neighborhood. Malden is not the Malden I knew several years ago. It's a very diverse community now. And I would like a police chief that can understand the growth and not afraid of the growth about diversity and the different cultures that are coming to the Malden area. And also to maintain accountability and some transparency, because for so long it's been things have been hidden in law enforcement, which has caused a lot of conflict. And I think if we are more open with each other from the community and law enforcement, we'll have a better relationship. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reeder. Mr. Rodney Neely.
Good afternoon. I'm Rodney Neely, 111 Basswood Drive in Malden, and been living in Malden, I guess, close to about 35 years now. First, I want to thank the city leadership for giving us this opportunity to come to you and speak with you about what the citizens of Malden is looking for. And I applaud not only this committee, but I applaud the city leadership for this opportunity. I want to reflect back on a conversation I had with one of your city council members several years ago, back when he was considering running for city council Malden his first time. His name was Taft Madden. We had lunch at this little restaurant here in Malden. And I said to him, Taft, we don't have any African Americans in leadership with the city. So if you elect the city council, will you seek that? His answer was no. He was honest with me, and I really appreciate that. He said, I'm gonna seek the most qualified person for the job. And that's what I asked this council to do because this is the most qualified person for the job. And that's what I asked. And it's just some things when I was on the interview panel for Greenville Police Department, when they had the interviews for the assistant chief of police, who's now the chief of police, Howard Thompson, there were some questions I asked him, and he was able to answer those questions because I had these questions come from a close friend of mine, Tony Taylor, who's chief of police over in Duncan. He said, Rodney, you want to make sure that leadership, when you ask from a leadership perspective, some things that cause a lot of trouble in the community. That's profiling, which law enforcement does that, our job. But there's a difference between profiling, implicit bias, and explicit bias. He said, you want to know the difference of those. And you want to make sure your leadership knows the difference of those. And, profiling is description of somebody, you go out as a police officer, you look for that person. That's what we do for a living. Implicit bias. Dale, you like this one. State trooper, Clemson fan. Working the Clemson game in Clemson, playing Carolina. Carolina beat the pants off of Clemson. Told you like it. Highway Patrol pulled him over to Clemson. Highway Patrol pulled this guy over. And notice this guy got on the Carolina stuff and everything. And this trooper, instead of writing him a warning ticket for that tail light, he wrote him a ticket because he was a Clemson fan, because he was a Carolina fan. Implicit, explicit, when somebody consciously pulls somebody over just because of who they are, what they look like in that car. So we want leadership, from the top to the bottom, because that's how things going to flow from the top, to understand the different things. Because those are the things that could get law enforcement in a lot of trouble. And it has. We watch TV every day. Guys in a lot of trouble. So we want to be very conscious when we interview and the candidates for chief. They don't understand the difference in those, and they don't say we don't do profiling. What you do, we all profile. Unless we have to be honest with ourselves. But if we would stick on that path and continue the trail that we're on for, given the community involvement, we're gonna be really, really proud of who y'all selected our next chief of police. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. That's everyone who signed up. Is there anybody in attendance that would like to speak? Please come to the podium, state your name and address, and the floor is yours.
My name is Robby Kellett. I am not a resident of the city. However, I spend more time here than I do at my current residence and have for the past 35 years. So I feel like that it is important for the business community to have a say, even though they're not residents of the city, to be able to come and ask questions of any chief that you decide to present. He needs to know the business community. He needs to understand the issues that they're dealing with. I really hope that there is a possibility of hiring from within, if possible. I feel like that is important for the officers that are here, and to maintain a good relationship between chief and officers, that they're able to give those officers the opportunity to move up in the ranks and move to where they're, to feel like that there's a place for them to go, rather than just coming, paying for training, and them moving along to another organization. I think that we have some issues, and still are, on the north end of town. We're continuing to do that. And as Malden grows and diversifies even more, it's going to be more important that we have a chief that's here that is not only familiar with the residents, but that is familiar with the business community and is able to work with them to to accomplish the aspects of, if you want to call it community policing, that's what it is with the business community too. They need to have that officer that understands what businesses are here doing, what their operations are. It could be something as simple as, m- you know, making sure that the officers understand that when you pull a car over, that that car needs to, once that car's secured, that they need to move out of the way because that business is there to do business. And, blocking their driveway for 15, 20 minutes at a time, presents a problem for that business. So I really do appreciate y'all having a committee, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kellett. Any more attendees that would like to speak? Please come to the podium, state your name and your address.
My name is Tony Madden. I've lived in Malden since 1983. Um, Prior to or during my time living in Malden, I was with the Greenville Police Department for 32 years. And I've had experience sitting on promotion boards, but never to hire a police chief. I think it's important. Um, and I think a little bit of my experience over the years I could shed a little bit of light on maybe what I would like to see in a police chief. Um, we definitely need somebody who have the experience, definitely capable of operating or commanding a police department. Um, I I've always found it important for the leader of a department to have some experience in the investigation field. I mean, some experience on knowing how to handle an investigation. Um, and Marlin is growing, and more cases where it would require some investigation, and to be able to supervise individuals who are doing the investigation, you need to have that knowledge of what's needed. Um, Another thing, um, I think that the next chief need to have some experience in being a supervisor. You know how to supervise men, and I'm sure that's going to be the qualification that you all is going to require. But uh, have a broad knowledge of law enforcement and being the police chief. I think you need to have some experience in patrolling, patrol supervision. Uh, what's expected from your men, and to be able to, bring some knowledge about patrolling from past experiences. Um, Crime and during my years, and the profession has changed since 2014. But during my years, understanding what a crime scene is, how it should be conducted, how essential it is when you're investigating cases, when you're dealing with a crime, and a big array of crime, anything from murders to rapes to, you know, auto break-ins to house break-ins, that kind of thing. He needs to have some experience in that area also. Um, and I think it always has been good to have some kind of training, certificate, understanding on media relations. It's always important to be able to address the media when it's appropriate, and you know and to understand when you need to be in the media and not in the media. That's always important. Um, I also found in my years, because I've made it to the rank of sergeant, um, that you got to understand your policies and procedures and how things are actually laid out and how they are followed. I mean, if you got the policies and procedures in place, and you make sure your personnel is following those procedures. Um, I could speak all day on some of the things that I think is needed for a police chief, and some of those things has been mentioned. Of course, transparency is one of them. Community policing is something that I dealt with when I was on the police department. So it's always important to connect with your citizens, and to have them feel as if though you're a part of them and you're not their allies, and it's always better for the community, better communication. And mm, I think that's about it that I can share on that subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. If there's no one else in attendance here physically to speak, I'm gonna check online. If there are any folks that are tuning in online, if you could raise your hand in the chat room to let me know if you would like to speak. I don't see anybody in the chat room virtually who's raising their hand to speak. So uh, if you would like to share your comments, you can email those comments to me at bmadden@maldencitysc.com. And city will make sure that your comments are included in a briefing with the search committee to develop the job vacancy. So thank you. At this time, that concludes the community forum. Uh, Thank you all for taking the time to come and share your thoughts. It's extremely helpful for the search team to be able to hear directly from the community. Those that live in the city and those that are business owners and work here in the city go a long way towards helping us craft a job vacancy to share and to put out to receive applicants. And we're looking forward to it. If you go to the city's police department webpage, there's a webpage that provides updates on where we are and the status of the recruitment. Please check from time to time. And as always, you can reach out to myself or the city if you have any questions. But thank you again, Ms. King. That concludes this portion. Unless you have any other items you would want to address.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. I was just going to remind all of you here and online, if you have not gone to the website, the next step will be the posting of the actual job, which is going to take place on or around May 10th. So the posting and the requirements will be on our website for you to view if you would like to do that. So the entire process we're estimating is going to take through the summer. Just to give you a little timeline there, through August is what we're anticipating. Before we adjourn, I would like to give members of the committee a chance to speak if they would like to. And if not, then we'll adjourn. Mr. Kraling?
I'd just like to thank everybody for coming and speaking today. This is very important, and I appreciate your effort, the time coming out here. And I'd also like to just mention a couple things that were said, that Mr. Madden is and was the best candidate for the job, period. I want to basically confirm that. And I really don't believe that USC could have beat Clemson at a football game. So on that note, thank you.
Well, if I had known he was going to say that, I might not have allowed him to speak. But Mr. Black can bring up that's right. That's right. You can clear up that, maybe. Thank you, Mr. Black. He had nothing to say about that Clemson Carolina thing, which is probably a smart thing. We don't need to talk about that tonight, or probably not for a few more years, actually. And yes, I would like to echo, thank you all again for coming tonight. If you think of something tonight or 3 weeks from now, feel free to email Mr. Madden. Mr. Putnam is our HR director, and I know myself and members of committee and the rest of our city council and mayor would be happy to speak to any of you all. So if you want to give us a call or shoot us an email, whatever form of communication works for you guys, we would love to hear back from you at any time. So with saying that, we stand adjourned.